Let's go!
So in breaking cruise news, a fire code has been issued on board Royal Caribbean's Jewel of the Seas while in the middle of their transatlantic journey over to Miami, which is the absolute worst time to have an emergency. Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Jay and welcome to The Ship Life. So yesterday on November 10th, the captain of Royal Caribbean's Jewel of the Seas issued what's known as a Code Bravo while in the middle of the ocean. Now Code Bravo is the fire code on board a cruise ship. You can remember this, or at least this is how I used to remember it when I was working on cruise ships. Johnny Bravo. You remember the guy that thought he was hot on Cartoon Network, but actually come to think of it, I think he got canceled now, so forget that. I'll think of another name for it. But anyway, this happened. The Code Bravo was issued on board Royal Caribbean's Jewel of the Seas. This caused all the crew on board racing to the I-95 with their life jackets in the event that they had to disembark or have an emergency disembarkation from the ship. Now, the I-95, for those of you that don't know, this is the busiest area on board the cruise ship. You'll typically see it if you're leaving the gangway. It's also the place to get your toes run over if you're not careful, if you're a crew member. Anyway, moving on, this emergency code called out by the captain was due to an overflow of water in the forward part or front of the ship. This then mixed with some chemicals somehow, which then caused smoke. Now, it didn't cause a fire. However, there was reason to take precautions and be alarmed because you never know. I guess they got Dexter's laboratory going on down there. All right, that's enough of the cartoon jokes. But either way, as a precaution, the captain on board Royal Caribbean's Jewel of the Seas decided to make the call and have everyone put on their life jackets in the event that they had to do an emergency evacuation should there be a fire or anything like that on board. Now, thankfully, even though the crew was called to their emergency stations, they didn't have to disembark the ship and everything was resolved in about 20 minutes or so. No crew member was harmed, injured, or anything like that, and everything worked out. End of story. Now hopefully this is the end of all issues for Jewel of the Seas as it makes its way over to Miami and hopefully it has no problems while it's there, because prior to all of this, with this situation with the Code Bravo, it had its own other share of problems in the form of COVID cases. So reportedly about 13 people on board in the form of 9 guests and 4 crew tested positive while the ship was sailing out of Cyprus. And apparently within a 30-day period, about 50 cases were reported on board. So hopefully it's not having some type of bad luck like we saw on, you remember the Odyssey of the Seas, it had some problems sailing over from Europe as well. Hopefully all that just kind of washes away. We can go ahead and sail peacefully once again, but I guess time will tell. Now I also want to tell you guys another situation that I personally dealt with while on board. We didn't exactly have a Code Bravo ship-wide as far as what was going on my ship back when I worked for NCL on the Escape, but we did have a fire in the engine room. Unfortunately, there were crew members that were hurt and they had to be airlifted, and the crew on our end, we were the only ones that knew about the Code Bravo. We had guests on board, so things are done a little bit differently if you've ever been a guest. The crew will typically be alerted when it comes to things before all the guests are, unless it's an immediate emergency that needs to be handled quickly. Now, in this case, of course, with Jewel of the Seas, it was empty as far as guests being on board because they're doing their transatlantic, so everything kind of worked itself out, or maybe they do have guests on board. I guess, don't quote me on that. Maybe they're just doing an actual transatlantic and having guests. I don't know. But either way, my point is, when it comes to this, guys, just make sure you kind of stay aware to what's going on cruise ships as a cruise ship passenger or even as a crew, because you never know what could happen in a moment's notice. Anyway, guys, we're going to leave it right here. I have another video coming out today, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Hit that like button on your way out, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys all later. Take care.